Hey, peace and love, y'all. It's Sister Alexis. I wanted to report to you because recently there was some information going around about a young lady who received her PhD at 23. And for me, I was just absolutely amazed. And of course, we've seen stories like that around, but for some reason, this one really captivated me. And so I was inclined to reach out to her. So I did. And I sent her a series of questions. And I was really shocked that she replied back. And she was busy at the time. So she told me that she would reach out to me early next week or something like that. And she followed up and she did. So I sent her a series of questions and she replied. And I wanted to share with you her replies. And her name is Julia Nipper, and she received her PhD at 23. Wow. So one of the questions I asked her was, at what age did she start homeschooling? And she said she started at 6 or 7. I wanted to know what curriculum she used. Did she have any videos on the lessons? And who was her primary teacher? She replied, my father was my primary teacher. He used workbooks from the teacher supply store for writing, science, math. And she remembered in second and third grade using a book called Everything Your Second or Third Grader Needs to Know. Eighth grade was just algebra. I should note that I did not have internet at home, and as a result, I didn't use the internet for her education until she was in college. I currently homeschool my eighth grader, and for me, this information was really important because Julia and I have a similarity in regards to that. I did not want to use the internet as a main resource for her learning. I didn't want to like stick her on the computer and just say, hey, watch this. Although we do use it as a resource, I did not want that to be her primary source. And so hearing that was really heartwarming to me because that was just really important. And so what I'm doing now for her is exactly that, utilizing a lot of the curriculum that I already had around the house and the textbooks that I use for school, also using the internet as a resource. Your state will probably have all the requirements that your child needs right on the internet, and you just print them. You print them and bring them home or print them from home and then have them in a portfolio. If you have to report to the state like I do, the education department for my child in terms of the curriculum that I am providing for her. Some parents don't use that option, but I wanted to create her own curriculum because as I started looking for curriculum or in schools, I wasn't that happy. I wasn't that happy with the options that were provided. A lot of the schools were religious based, and I didn't want to do that. I thought I wanted to do it, but then as I started to look at the curriculum that they offered, I was like, yeah, I would have to start doing a lot of unschooling for her, and I felt like that defeated the whole purpose of what I was trying to do. So the other question, did your state require a transcript for graduating high school? Is there anything that I can think of in advance for this process? She said yes. Yes, but it didn't have to be anything particularly official. My high school transcript says I was accelerated through all of the state requirements for graduation. My father and I wrote it up in Microsoft Word, which in the homeschool group that I'm in, that's actually very common. And with a lot of these online curriculums, they do offer report cards and transcript options and a way for you to keep up with your child's grades, which is good for them because they can always go back. It's basically you're a teacher for them. You are the teacher. And so in order for them to have the information so they can look back on, and if you are creating a portfolio for the Board of Education, that is important for them to view to some degree, and not because some of them that is not part of the requirement. But I think for your own personal benefit, it is nice. And if you and your child decide that they will be going back into the school system, that is information that is good to know. did you follow a strict schedule for daily activities? And she said, no, not at all. Sometimes her father would forget to have me do any schoolwork for the day. And she said she didn't feel any need to remind him. And I find that if you have a child that's a self starter, that won't be an issue. But children will be children as well. And if they can get a day off from doing work, they might not say anything if you don't say anything. And so I find that keeping a planner for us is very important. I have a planner for her, and I write in her planner, and she looks at it on a daily basis and just does her work from there. And she knows what books that she has to work from. And that's pretty much it. It's up to her to follow it. And if you have a child who's having a hard time following what's on their schedule, you just have to let them know, like, this is your life. You know, this is your life. Everything that you do in life will set you up for the next stage in your life. Set you up for ninth grade, set you up for 10th grade, set you up for adulthood. So it's important for you to do it if you want to live a certain lifestyle. And one thing that you will hear from people, you will hear from children that don't know anything about this lifestyle in terms of homeschooling, is they'll talk about the social aspect. So if you have a child who was in school and then came out of school, they will tend to talk about the social aspect. Well, when am I going to see my friends? And it's just going to be me, and it's going to be boring, and all these different things. And so I was curious to hear about what she experienced, and if there was anything that her parents offered her in those regards. And she said she did not have a significant social life, but this was for whatever reason. And I would say that being involved in group activities like sports, the 4-H clubs, I don't know if anyone has 4-H, but I do. I definitely can say that 4-H is a great resource. We have 4-H here, and my daughter takes a sewing class that her and I both love. And she feels that that's very important. But for her, that was not something that was part of her homeschooling. For the state of Maryland, it is required that my child does have phys ed. So that is something that we are doing. But right now, currently, we're doing basically a lot of book work on phys ed. If that makes any sense. She was in sports, so talking about sportsmanship, leadership, things of that nature. And as time goes on, we will do different physical activities. Like, for instance, some of the moms on the homeschool group said that they were doing skating or swimming or karate and things of that nature. So there's all different types of options that you can tap into for that. We are at the beginning stages. That is part of our plan, to be more physically involved. And for the state of Maryland, proof of that would be a picture of her doing something that's considered phys ed. What else did she say? I wanted to know, how did she finish high school at 12? Being that she started so young, I get how she can finish and do an accelerated option for her, and that's exactly what she did. I thought you would have to go year by year, and there was not much skipping that you can do, but there is. And she says, I'm not sure exactly how my father determined that I was ready to go to advance to the next grade. But at that time, I would take the equivalent of a end of the year test, which she said was the California Achievement Test, to move to the next grade. I completed 2nd through 8th grade by the age of 11. So if you have a child that can comprehend things really well, great at test taking, this is exactly how she did it. And to also have a father that's very committed, father or mother or any guardian that is committed in the way that this family was committed to get her to the next stages. She said, after that, I was in public school for a short time and took the SAT through the Talented Individual program. So what I do know is that the SATs, the school will pay for when you're in a public school. So you can get the school to pay for it. If there are some things that you have to go through, you have to go and talk to your guidance counselor. But if you talk to your counselor, I know you can get it at a reduced rate or even free. And I am going to pay for it. I'm going to do, actually, she's going to take practice SAT first. And then we'll kind of go from there based on her scores, and we'll decide that I will decide what's necessary for her at that point. I will go in to talk to the guidance counselor about it. I'm not sure if she's going to go to the ninth grade. We're going to see how this works out. Honestly, I don't want her to go back. I really don't. But I don't want to send her into a state of chaos either, of like not having a social life, a school social life, and then to not have one. It's just like all she's doing is playing with her brothers. So I will get her into a homeschool group. There aren't many in my area, and that's part of the problem. And people can say, oh, you can start one, but it's like, honestly, just because you're a homeschooler doesn't mean I want you hanging out with my child. So that's something that I'll have to look into further. I've been on different types of groups just trying to see, like, hey, who's in my county. And thus far I haven't been as successful, but I know it's gonna come up and we're gonna make that work. So she says she scored so well to get accepted into the community college, and after a semester split between public high school and college, my father wrote my diploma and I started college full time. So there are some programs that will allow you to be in high school and college at the same time. Generally, it might start at 10th or 11th grade. Also, there's something called CLEP, CLEP. Don't remember what it stands for. Know that it's administered by the same folks as the SAT, and your child can start this at in 7th grade. And my daughter has taken one college course, like American history or something, so she's already on that path. You pay by class, and some of them are worth anywhere between 1 credit to like 6 or 8 credits or something like that. And by the time your child gets to high school, he or she can already have a ton of credits. So that's something that you can look into, and it's CLEP, CLEP. You can look onto it. And so this is pretty interesting. If your school offers this is something that you should really take advantage of. To have your child in a dual program like that is amazing, and it puts them ahead of the game. Did you take Common Core tests? She said, my primary school education predates Common Core by several years, so that wasn't something that she had to do. And did she get report cards? She did not get any report cards. I didn't get any sort of grades besides percentiles on the end of grade tests, though I did calculate the percentage of questions I got right on algebra worksheets. So, which I think is really interesting, because the school sets you up to always have to have grades, to always have you compete and put you on different levels. People always want to know, what's your score? What's your score? What's your score? Like, it's so important to them. And I think it's kind of a not very beneficial, because it sets you up for this life where you always have to know where you stand. You see what I'm saying? And wanted to know what was most of her college experience like, whether it was in person or online. And because you were a homeschooler, were your options limited for college? I was told that some colleges won't accept homeschoolers. And so her reply was, I only took one online college course. My SAT scores were what enabled me to get into college. I went to a local college, and I'm not sure if others would have had a similar an issue with me being homeschooled. So she didn't apply for other colleges, I guess. She just went to a local college, so she can't say what it's going to be like for any other colleges. Because she had a good SAT score, it wasn't really relevant to her. So that's something to think about, homeschool parents, that the SAT scores, you take them. take them. The SAT test, you want to take it, go ahead and take it. And I wanted to know, that's really a personal question, and I don't know if she talked about that publicly, so I won't mention that one. And I wanted to know if there were any other pertinent information that I should know as a homeschool parent. And she said, in my opinion, all you really need for college is a solid reading, writing, and math up to algebra skills. My reading and writing skills were pretty good because I really enjoyed reading and would read for pleasure for hours every day. Nothing fancy like Dickens or Steinbeck, just whatever I felt like reading. I was a big fan of young adult novels, math. I learned from doing lots of problems and workbooks, everything you can learn in college, everything, almost everything I know about history, biology, chemistry, and social studies I learned in college. So my advice is to focus on the essentials and what that foundation you should be able to, and with that foundation, you should be able to build anything. Super grateful for this young sister to spend the time to answer these questions and answer them so thoroughly. And I hope this was useful for you. It definitely was for me. It's something that I really think about and I refer back to. And I have my daughter read, and she kind of like gets it, especially with the social aspect. You know, it is important to have a social aspect area of life, and you can have it, and it doesn't mean you have to get it from school. There's so many different programs, art programs. There's a homeschool program at the museum, local museum here, that you can take your child to. You can also start one. I want to start an art class because my children are really gifted in art, and so that's something that I will be doing, and I've already started to get participants for it. So it is feasible. This is a blueprint that I plan on following for my own children. And like she said, you basically need to focus on the essentials. Once you focus on the essentials, and I know for a fact with college applications, you will need to know how to write essays. So have your child focus on that and your basic math, and it should be great. So I hope you find this video useful and helpful. Julia Nipper, I'm so grateful for her. And if she's watching, thank you so much for answering these questions. This is going to help so many different people around the world. And I know a lot of people actually coming from Atlanta, living in Atlanta, a lot of the moms homeschool their children. And so a lot of them have stories of like being pilots at flying planes at 16 and 17. And so there are some great success stories out there. And don't feel like you're alone. If you ever find some story that you think is really amazing and you want to know more information, do like I did as a concerned parent wanting to have children that excel in life, especially if they already have that. You have an AB student currently, and you're like, hey, maybe school is not the right thing for us, for our family, and you want an alternate method. Go for it. Shoot your shot. Send that email. They may or may not respond, but if they do, you have a personal blueprint from them for your family that you can tweak and use for your own family. So, all right, y'all. Peace and love, Sister Alexis.